Hi everyone, my name's Matt Barrett. If you don't know who I am or anything about me, I'm an estate agent with nearly 30 years industry experience, and I thought I would jump on and start doing a weekly video. I've been getting asked by friends and families on a sort of fairly regular basis now what's happening in the marketplace, and my role is such a broad span. The role I do now covers from south of Birmingham all the way down to Plymouth and across to Southampton, from Oxford all the way across to West Wales. So a really large geographical patch, and there's really good agent commentators in the marketplace that a lot of us in the industry listen to and watch on a regular basis, talking about what's happening in the marketplace. Um, but much like the information I've probably got on a regional basis, it's not actually local. It's not really talking about what's happening in the core patch where people that I know and where I live myself, and friends of mine that are selling. It's not really helping them. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to do a hyper local update on the marketplace specifically for the CF14 postcode area. It's where I live. It's been home now for a long time for me. And I just wanted to sort of get into a habit of being able to update anyone else who's in that sort of North Cardiff area on what's been happening in the marketplace, the good, the bad, the ugly, just some stats, quick 5 minutes. And hopefully, for those thinking about selling or are either going through that process now or perhaps in the future, they'll get some real benefit out of it. So it's a little bit of stats around what's been happening year to date. And if there's specific questions that anyone's got about additional data or things like that, then I would be delighted to sort of go through anything separately. So you can just message me and I'm more than happy to do that. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and just talk you through a little bit about some of the data. So this is it, CF14, week 10 is where we're at the moment. So we will do this every Monday. I'll be looking to try and get a video out on what's been happening and sort of an update in the marketplace. All the data that I'm using is coming through a system called 20EA. It's a database that we subscribe to. It gives us all the data on what's happening in the marketplace, and it pulls data from various sources and property portals and what have you. So any data I'm using is coming from there. And if anyone, as I said, has any specific data requests, I'll be more than happy to help if I can. But let's get into it. Let's look at some of the data for the first 10 weeks of 2026, and I can sort of steer you through what I'm seeing and what I think is happening in the marketplace. So let's kick off with what's happening on instructions coming in versus the sales numbers. So you can see here 335 new properties coming to the market in the first 10 weeks. The week one is a slightly longer week. It started on a Thursday, so it kind of runs Thursday to the following Sunday. So it's a slightly longer week where you've got that real spike of new year activity with sort of 40 odd instructions coming to the market, and then dips down into week two, steadily rising there to week six. And then, as you can see, starting to come away. So the new instructions are the blue lines there. And then the sales next to it, you can see how each week has its sales representative next to it. And there's 285 sales so far in CF14. So 335 come to the market, 285 sold so far going through. In terms of price, what we've seen is actually the instruction price and the sales price haven't been a long way apart from each other. Instruction price coming in at 386,000 or just over, and sale price at an average of 376,000. So you can see there's quite a good correlation there. You've got a couple of weeks there. So week 5, I think, is a standout where you've got a sales number in the orange there sitting slightly higher than the instruction number. But overall, over that 10-week period where you're starting to get some continuity in the marketplace, you're seeing some really clear data. 386 and a half coming to the market on average, and 376 and a half at sales price. Now, something that estate agents use. Now, not all estate agents use, but some certainly do. And we see it far less with buyers and sellers is the pound per square foot. Now, I always advise anyone who's looking at their property singularly as a single one-off property, be careful with pound per square foot. There are, of course, things that will influence this. General condition of a property, garden size, road, etc. There are certain areas where you're going to get more, certain areas where you're going to get less. But when you're looking at data across quite a broad span, so we're 10 weeks here across the whole of the CF14 postcode, pound per square foot can be really valuable to give you a little bit of an understanding for trends that are happening across the marketplace. So you can see here at instruction, the average pound per square foot, and this does vary from apartments to small sort of 2 and 3 bedroom houses up to larger 4 and 5 bedroom detached properties. You'll see variations in there, but as an average, coming to the market, £373 per square foot and selling at 355. Now, any point where I talk about selling, this is sold subject to contract, so this isn't necessarily exchange contracts yet. As we get a little bit later into the year, I will start to add exchange of contracts, prices in there, and really start to show where the market is from instruction to sale to that exchange of contracts. So you'll have a bit of a flavour for what all the numbers might look like. Now, the interesting part for me is looking at the instruction price, sales price. What about sales rate? That's what this next one gives us, is what's the sales rate. Now, you've got 2 weeks here that stand out. Week 2, you can see actually more properties sold than came to the market, so just over 120% there. And week 5, exactly the same thing. Now, we saw that those prices did really well in week 5 as well earlier in the slides, but 140%. Overall, though, 85.1%. So for every 10 properties coming to the market, 8.5 are selling at the same time. So 85.1%, which is really, really positive. You've got a real consistency here, apart from those 2 very, very strong weeks, anywhere between 60 and 90% per week. And that's sort of reoccurring now for the first 10 weeks of the year, which has been a really positive thing. So there's some really good things here. What I will do is in a later slide, I'll sort of show you how that compares to the UK market, because at the moment CF14 is doing really, really well, and that sales rate is looking particularly strong. Before I do that, I wanted to do a couple of quick slides on the breakdown of CF14. So look at the out codes and what are the instruction prices and sales prices for the individual out codes within CF14 look like. And you can see there, some really big numbers. CF14 0 looking really, really strong. £604,000, which is obviously by far and away the strongest one there. Now, when you're dealing with an out code like this, you have got less transaction numbers that you're dealing with. So you please also consider the fact that 1 or 2 particularly high value properties can absolutely see that move forwards. Equally, 1 or 2 particularly low value property transactions in that time can absolutely bring it down. Over the weeks, as I start to post these videos more regularly, you'll start to get more and more consistency where the highs or lows are more sort of plateaued out within the volume of what's happening in the market. So this should really give you a good idea for what's happening in those out code areas. What you can also look at, aside from the instruction and sales price here, what you can look for is the sales rate. Now, earlier on, we talked about the CF14 as a total at 85.1%. And you can see there, I've put the national stat in there. Nationally, at the moment, and today is the 17th of March, according to 20EA, the national sales rate is only 65.1%. So CF14 is holding out really, really well overall. You can see there, CF143 is selling at a huge rate, a significant. That's 21 new properties have come to the market, but 29 have sold subject to contract in CF14-3. So that's why you've got such a strong sales rate there. So actually more properties are sold in the first 10 weeks than have come to the market. So really positive insight as to what's happening in that bit of the market there. Overall, they're all sitting above the national average. Every CF14 postcode is sitting above the national average, which is really good indicator for how good the property market is in the CF14 area. Now, There's a couple of slides here, which if any agents see this video and have got any questions about, please ask. I sort of go into anything about agents with just the facts and figures as I've seen them on 20EA, and I'm not here to make any suggestion about strength of agent or performance of agent. These are just some of the numbers. But I think if we're going to talk about what's happening in the market, I think it's important that we show what's happening sort of with individual agents. So you've got a couple of lines here. The blue vertical lines, this is the amount of instructions that the agent has taken to the market. The orange is the amount of sales that the agent has then done in the corresponding time. And then the green line is the percentage, which you'll see against the right-hand side of that graph. So, you can look in there and see some of those numbers pretty clearly. I've highlighted a couple of these out because I just wanted to identify them. So if you looked at Tatham's, whilst they are sort of not one of the highest listing businesses, they are actually selling at 89.1%, which is absolutely fantastic. That is absolutely market leading. So for every 100 properties that they are putting on the market, they are selling just over 89 properties, which is fantastic. Other highlights that you can see are those little peaks in there. Chambers are selling at 86.16% and Hearn and Crabtree at 84.78%. Now, those numbers I'm sure will change as the year goes on, but those are three really outstanding performances across the marketplace, which is worth highlighting in there. Additionally, then, if you're having a look through at pricing, what price is being achieved. Now, this is a really interesting part of reporting that 20EA has. For the purpose of this, what we've done is we've looked at, based on a typical or average instruction price of 400,000, what would each agent, based on their instruction to sales value, what would they each get? Now, the average that you see here is 393,000. That is what, based on the market conditions and what the overall sales in CF14 look like, that is what we would see. Your house, if a house went to the market at 400,000, it would achieve 393,000, which gives you this little bar in the middle of the table where it's sort of a dash. And then you can start to see which agents are achieving slightly below that, which agents are achieving slightly above that. Now, what's really interesting here is actually it's the same agent again that you would highlight here as having a really, really good result here. So Tatham's, based on a £400,000 instruction, based on their average instruction price to sale price, they would on average be achieving 401,000, which is fantastic, of course. Bear in mind their sales rate is so strong and their sales value so strong. That would put them at £7,900 more than the average estate agent in the marketplace at the moment. So for me, I don't know the chaps at Tatham's at all really, but what I would say is that business there looks like it's doing some fantastic work, both on the sales rate and the sales values being attained. As I said, I don't know them, don't know anything really about the business, but this is what the data goes to show us, which is looking really, really positive. Couple of quick things just to finish up is the yearly comparison. So again, if you're looking through here, the sales are the orange bar, the instructions are the blue bars. And what you can start to see here is, coming out of COVID 2023, the volumes for the first 10 weeks of 2023 were all sort of more subdued. 2024, it's rocketed along. Okay, so you can see the instruction number has slightly diminished from 2024 to 25 and now into 2026. So that's dropped from 374 instructions to 340 to 335 in the same time period. However, we haven't necessarily seen the same drop on sales. 2024 only saw 249 sales in that period. 2025, that was up to 300, and it has just dropped back a little bit for 2026 at 285. So data is really showing that the market is positive. A greater percentage of what's coming to the market is selling than perhaps in previous years. And what it shows on the next one is at your pound per square foot, we're also seeing a higher value being achieved, which, given the sales rate is looking positive, less coming to the market slightly, but positive sales rate, that's looking really, really good. And if you're looking through here The pound per square foot rate has jumped from £328 per square foot in 2024 up to £355 per square foot in 2026. So really positive. Taking the average listing price from 364 and a half, close enough, to just over 376 and a half. So really positive in terms of what the overall pricing has been doing, the sales rate, and what's happening in the market. So just as a little brief update, that was what I wanted to go through for what's happening in CF14. Now, the data that 20EA supplies allows you to break this down into real minute detail. If you wanted to look at what's happening for apartments, terrace houses, bungalows, detached, 5 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, you can do all of those things. Most estate agents will have access to this sort of thing. It's a really fancy tool, really useful for me as an estate agent and any of the teams that I work with. They all tend to use it and get real value from it to really make sure that clients understand what's happening in the marketplace. If you've got any questions around your property, perhaps in CF14, but even if it's not, I can absolutely look and see what's happening on any market trends anywhere and would be delighted to help if I can. I am an estate agent. As I said, I do run an estate agency team. I don't do any real density of work in CF14. This isn't about promoting a business that I operate within. This really is about trying to help anyone who is thinking about buying, selling, investing in property in their market to really understand what's going on and what's happening out there. So as I said, if I can help in any way, please do feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. Thanks ever so much.